The air in the warehouse was a thick soup of dust, oil, and stale cigarette smoke. It clung to everything: the rusting machinery, the greasy concrete floor, and the three men who stood over Amelia Vance. Her wrists were bound tightly with a length of rough cord, and the same binding secured her ankles, forcing her to sit upright against a cold support beam. She watched them with a calm that was utterly unnerving to them. To them she was just an unwelcome trespasser. To her they were the target. Leo, the leader, was a man whose confidence was built on a foundation of brute force and cheap suits. He leaned in, his face a mask of condescending amusement. "Look at her," he said, a sneer twisting his lips. "Just a little tourist, all lost and found her way into our private party." He punctuated the sentence with a soft, mocking laugh. His two companions, Marco and Benny, joined in. Marco, a hulking man with arms like tree trunks, chuckled low in his chest. Benny, younger and more jittery, offered a nervous, high-pitched giggle. Amelia said nothing. She didn't struggle. She simply watched them, her dark eyes as placid as a deep lake. They had found her hiding behind a stack of crates, a small, inconspicuous figure with a backpack. The backpack was now on the floor beside them. Its contents spilled out like a yard sale of the mundane: a half-eaten granola bar, a bottle of water, a paperback novel, and a wallet. Everything a hiker, a student, or a lost traveler might carry. Nothing more. "What's your name, little bird?" Leo asked, his voice dripping with faux kindness. He knelt down and picked up her wallet, pulling out her driver's license. "Amelia Vance, from a suburb I've never heard of. You're a long way from home, Amelia." He tossed the wallet back onto the pile with a flourish. "She probably saw something she shouldn't have," Marco rumbled, his voice like gravel. "What do we do with her, Leo? What do we do?" "We have fun with her first," Leo said, his smile widening. "Then we decide. You're quiet, aren't you, Amelia? Cat got your tongue." Benny shifted his weight from foot to foot. "Maybe we should just, let her go. She looks harmless." Leo glared at him. "Benny, the only harmless people are the ones who are 6 feet under. She's seen the shipment. She knows the layout. She's a risk, and we don't take risks." He turned back to Amelia. "But Benny's right. You do look harmless. Your little face is so innocent. You wouldn't hurt a fly, would you, sweetie?" Amelia's eyes flickered, just for a moment, and a ghost of a smile touched her lips. "I wouldn't be so sure," she said, her voice a low, steady murmur. The three men froze, then burst into a fresh wave of laughter. It was a harsh, dismissive sound that echoed off the high ceiling. "Listen to her," Leo howled, wiping a tear from his eye. "A real little firecracker, ain't she? Well, let's see what you've got." He stomped over to a small table near a forklift and picked up a heavy flashlight. Its beam a single bright circle in the dusty air. "Let's play a little game. You tell me what you saw. We tell you if it's a good answer." Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, and the temperature in the warehouse rose with it. Leo and Marco took turns badgering her, their questions ranging from the mundane to the threatening. What was she doing there? Who was she with? Had she told anyone where she was going? Amelia's answers were vague, believable, and utterly useless. "I was hiking," she said. "Got lost. No, I'm alone." Each response was met with more laughter and taunts. Benny, however, stayed on the periphery, his unease growing with every passing minute. He was the one who went through her backpack again, more thoroughly this time. He found the paperback novel, a dense historical account of the Roman Empire, a strange choice for a casual hike. He opened it, saw the careful annotations in the margins, the way certain dates and names were underlined. He didn't understand it, but it made him feel a little colder. He also found a small container of hair ties. He pulled one out. It was a simple black elastic. He stretched it, and as he did, he felt something hard and flat sewn into the fabric. He furrowed his brow, confused. He pulled at the thread until a tiny, thin metallic strip fell into his palm. It looked like a flash drive, but it wasn't possibly small. He went to Leo, holding out the object. "Leo, what's this?" he whispered. Leo was in the middle of a joke, laughing at one of his own threats. He barely glanced at the object. "It's a hair tie, you idiot. She's not trying to get out with a hair tie." "No, look," Benny insisted, his voice trembling slightly. "Something's inside it." Marco snatched the tiny metal piece. From Benny he examined it, his thick fingers turning it over. "It's nothing," he grunted. "Looks like a piece of a watch. She's probably some kind of tinkerer." "It's not a watch," Amelia said from the floor. Her voice cut through, the air sharper. "This time it's a data chip." Leo stopped laughing. He stared at her, then at the object in Marco's hand. The silence was absolute. The humor had drained from the room like water from a sink. "A data chip for what, Amelia?" Leo asked, his voice low and dangerous. "For my work," she said, simply. "And what is your work?" "I gather information." Leo's eyes narrowed. He looked from the chip to her placid face. The shift in his demeanor was immediate and terrifying. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a cold, calculating fear. He stomped over and kicked her gently in the side. "Don't play games with me," he hissed. "Who are you, really?" Amelia didn't flinch. "I told you. I'm Amelia Vance and I'm not playing games." Benny, still on edge, picked up the book. He flipped through the pages again. The careful annotations suddenly seemed sinister. He glanced at the wallet. The driver's license. It was too simple, too clean, the kind of thing an operative would carry. His mind raced, making connections he didn't want to make. "Leo," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The name Vance, I've heard that before from a TV show or something." Leo scoffed. "You watch too much TV, Benny." "No, listen to me," Benny pleaded, his eyes wide with genuine panic. "My cousin worked security for some corporate bigwig. He talked about a guy who went missing in Cairo. His handler's name was Vance, a woman, a legend. He said she was known for getting into places nobody else could, and nobody ever saw her coming. Nobody knew what she looked like." Marco's face paled. "You're talking about the agency," Benny breathed, his gaze fixed on Amelia. The laughter was a distant memory. The mockery was a grave error. Amelia just smiled, a real, genuine smile. "The CIA, Central Intelligence Agency, and you, gentlemen, have made a grave mistake." The shift in the room was palpable. Leo's posture, once so commanding, became hunched and defensive. Marco's grip on the tiny data chip tightened, as if it might burn him. Benny looked as though he were about to vomit. They had tied up a ghost, a whisper, a legend. "Don't believe him," Leo said, but his voice lacked conviction. "He's losing his mind." "She's not. She can't be." Amelia shifted, testing the ropes. "The knot is a simple clove hitch," she said, her voice now filled with a quiet authority. "You tied it quickly, with no real pressure, because you didn't see me as a threat. That was your second mistake." Her hands, which had seemed so delicate and still, began to move. She worked the rope against the hard surface of the support beam, a rhythmic, almost meditative motion. The cord, already frayed from the rough handling, began to give. They were too preoccupied with their terror to notice they were staring at her, seeing not the lost girl, but the phantom, the one who made people disappear. Leo's mind was racing. He was the leader, the man in charge. He had to do something. He pulled out his pistol, a cheap-looking .38, and pointed it at her. The gesture was meant to be intimidating, but his hand trembled. "Amelia Vance," he said, his voice a pathetic squeak. "You're not supposed to be here." "No," she agreed, her voice still calm. "I'm not, but neither are you. And I know about the shipment. I know about the buyer. And I know you just made an enemy you can't see. You have a choice. You can let me go. And maybe, just maybe, the agency will forget you ever existed. Or you can find out what happens when you anger them." "We're not afraid of you," Marco grunted, but his knees were shaking. He still held the chip. "You should be," Amelia said. The cord around her wrists snapped with a quiet ping. She stood up in a single fluid motion, the ropes falling from her body. Leo's eyes went wide. He raised the gun, but she was faster. She moved with an effortless grace that was a stark contrast to her earlier stillness. Her hand shot out and a small razor-thin blade appeared between her fingers. It was so fast it looked like a trick of the light. She sliced the cords on her ankles with a single, precise cut. The trio was so shocked they could barely react. "You really should have searched me better," she said, her voice an almost playful whisper. "My knife is in my hair, hidden in a simple bun. My cums are under my tongue, and my lockpicks are sewn into the seams of my pants." Leo, his bravado completely gone, fired the pistol. The shot went wide, hitting the beam behind her. He fumbled with the gun, his hands shaking so badly he couldn't aim. Marco, his face a mask of primal fear, dropped the data chip and lunged at her, his immense size a poor substitute for skill. Amelia met his charge with a simple step to the side, pivoting on her heel. As he lumbered past, she landed a precise, powerful strike to the side of his neck. Marco's eyes rolled back at his head, and he collapsed, a heap of unconscious muscle on the floor. Benny screamed, a short, high-pitched cry of pure terror. He scrambled backward trying to get away, but Amelia was already on him. She grabbed him by the shoulder and, with a swift, practiced twist, pinned his arm behind his back. The pain was immediate and excruciating. "Tell me about the shipment," she said, her voice a low command, "and I won't break your arm." Benny, sobbing, told her everything. The location, the client. He spilled it all out, a geyser of panicked information. He looked at her not as a woman, but as a force of nature, a ghost in the machine, a legend come to life. Leo, left alone, watched in horrified silence. He was supposed to be in control. He was supposed to be the one on top. But the woman he had laughed at, the one he had tied up like a common criminal, was taking his world apart, piece by piece. His hands were still trembling, but he aimed the gun at Benny. "Shut up, you fool," he screamed. "Don't tell her anything." The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. It wasn't Leo's gun that fired. It was Amelia's. The tiny weapon, no bigger than a smartphone, was now in her hand. The bullet grazed Leo's shoulder, a perfectly aimed shot, to disable, not to kill. He cried out, dropping his own weapon. Amelia released Benny, who fell to the ground, panting and shaking. She knelt down, picked up the dropped data chip, and tucked it into a small, secret pocket in her boot. She looked at the three of them, Marco, unconscious, Benny in shock, and Leo bleeding and defeated. She had been right. They were just tourists in a game they couldn't hope to play. "I'm sorry to have to do this," she said, her voice softening, "but I can't have you spoiling my fun." She took a small, black hand-silver device from her boot and pushed a single button. It emitted a high-frequency pulse that was inaudible to human ears but sent a piercing signal to a nearby satellite. A moment later, a chopper could be heard, approaching in the distance. "The cavalry is coming," she said, looking down at them. "I suggest you wait patiently. The agency is not known for its sense of humor." She turned a shadow among the shadows and walked toward the back of the warehouse, disappearing into the darkness just as the first sirens began to wail in the distance. The three men were left alone in the cold, dusty warehouse, their laughter gone, replaced by a cold, abiding fear. They had tied her up and laughed. They found out she was CIA, and they had learned a very hard lesson about underestimating the quiet ones.